Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Greg Furman, market analyst here at TraderPlanet.com, and these are the market positions for July the 20th, 2010. Now, our first trade for tomorrow is going to be in light sweet crude. Now, what I see happening, I've talked about this in the Forex weekly outlook, and essentially I'm looking at crude oil getting ready to make a break higher. Now, we've got some volatility with the equities and the other commodities, but primarily we're holding above this 18-day predicted moving average from Vantage Point. We've now closed at 76.54. Our key levels are 75.75, 76.05, and 76.39. So we've actually closed above all three of the Vantage Point predicted moving averages. This is a very positive sign in my view. Now, to further support that, we can see that our predicted medium and long-term differences are remaining positive. Our predicted MACD has got a very small cross to the upside bouncing off the trigger. And most importantly, our predicted true strength indicator from Vantage Point is above the zero line, and we can see that the trigger is moving higher. Now, all of this tells me that crude oil, we're going to still have some volatility, but the probability is, based on all these indicators, that crude is going to continue to move higher. Now, let's go in and take it one step further. Let's have a look at the short, the medium, and the long-term crossover. Now, the short-term crossover, I'm pretty sure is going to point to the upside, but it's actually not. It's running flat. So now let's go have a look at the medium-term crossover and see if we can narrow this down a bit. The medium-term crossover very clearly showing a buy signal. Again, as you probably all know, I'm not a fan of the short-term indicators. They constantly produce false signals, so we always look to the medium and the long term. So with that said, our medium term is supportive of further long positions, and our long term we can see is just crossing over to the upside, which is an excellent indicator that it's going to move higher. Now, that's not to say that it's going to pull back first. So now that we've clearly identified we want to buy this thing on dips. Trading is either buying on dips or selling into strength. In this particular case, we are going to buy on a dip. So let's go in, see if we can narrow down that entry point using the daily report from Vantage Point to help fine-tune that entry. Now, we've identified our major support level, 75.75, which is the Vantage Point 18-day predicted moving average. We can see that this short-term indicator right here is somewhat negative. However, the neural index is contradicting that short-term crossover, which I believe clearly that the neural index is going to take precedent here. So we're going to go with that. It's confirming our buy, our medium and long-term indicators. Medium term is also come down a little bit, but our long-term crossover, our long-term predicted differences, we can see is actually gaining strength. So again, ignoring some of the short-term stuff and focusing more on the medium term, we can see that it supports a further move on crude oil to the upside. So 75.62, we're not going to use that. We're going to use our 18-day predicted moving average because that represents a very significant support level. So again, we've got when we're looking at this, I'm just going to put this back up on the triple EMA cross so everybody can see where I'm getting that pivot point from. And now, pivot point is something that I call it using the Vantage Point predicted moving averages. The theory behind a moving average, when it's above it, we're long. When it's below it, we're short. So in this case, we're above it. The market's staying above 75.75 is the entry point I would be looking for tomorrow. Now, that's our first position. Our next position, we're going into the foreign exchange market. I talked extensively about the Euro Swiss franc in my Forex Weekly Outlook. Now, in the Forex Weekly Outlook, I had said the Euro is going to gain strength pretty much right across the board. I said that actually a couple of weeks ago. That's actually looking pretty good now. Now, what I want to point out here with Vantage Point, this triple EMA crossover from Vantage Point has literally been months since we've got a buy signal. And this one here, guys, technically back in May, was not a buy signal. So I'm actually going to pull this back a bit so I can show everybody how long it's actually been since we've had a buy signal on the US Swiss franc currency pair. So you know, it's not even showing up on my chart here, and I'm going back into January the 1st. So I'm actually going to have to go back a little bit further here to a year ago until I can find a buy signal. As you can see, it's been essentially just a sell. So if we're going to get this triple EMA crossover making its move, this is a very significant, potentially a very significant event. Now what concerns me is, again, this false break we had here back in the end of May. Now what I'm seeing right now is I'm going to identify three critical levels: 134.89, 134.79, and 135.68. These are all critical levels. We're coming out of heavily oversold territory. We can see that the Vantage Point trigger on the predicted MACD is breaking above the zero line. Our predicted medium and long-term differences, not quite overbought yet, but getting there, definitely. So let's go in now and have a look at these crossovers and see exactly what's happening. Now I'm going to start this time with the long-term crossover because that's the one that's of the most interest to me. So now the black line is a simple moving average. The blue line is a Vantage Point predicted moving average. And we can see by these green candlesticks how the market is actually hugging the predicted moving average. And it can't even get to the exponential moving average or the simple moving average. So that's certainly a point of interest to us. So the long-term crossover is suggesting it's going to go higher. Obviously our medium term is fully supportive of that, and our short-term crossover, what we're looking for is all three of these indicators to be in agreement, and we can see that they are. So that's a very, very good sign that US Swiss franc, or Euro Swiss franc, excuse me, has room to extend. So I like this, the way this is setting up. I'm a little nervous around that 136.50, 136.80 area. So what we're going to be doing is looking for the market to pull back on the Euro Swiss franc and get into our buy position. So again, we're either selling into strength or buying on dips. In this particular case, again, we are looking only to buy on dips. Now identifying 135.62 is our predicted low, 136.86 is our predicted high. Predicted short, medium, and long-term differences are all extending higher. We've gone from 78 to 88, 82 to 110, and 98 to 127. Everything looks good here. So 135.62 is our predicted low for tomorrow. 135.62, we're now going to line that up. We can see that we have 135.68 on the 3-day predicted moving average from Vantage Point. So everything looks good here. We would really like to see a break of that 137 area for this trade to get going, because again, we definitely have some resistance in that 136.80, 136.90 area. So everything looks good for that. Now we have time for one more trade, so we're going to go back and we're going to have a look at the British pound US dollar. Now this trade has done extremely well. We've got some resistance around the 155 area. You'll remember that I was recommending longs anywhere between basically 142.60 and the 144.80 area. So again, very, very solid trade here. Just putting our profit calculator on here and identifying what's been going on to our peak trade here. Now this is the trade that actually I've been in personally for again well over almost 2 months now. So again, if we look at a profit calculator on this, 1,120 pips, $11,200 on essentially a single 100K trade, $10 a pip. Now again, shorts just getting killed. The short-term traders looking to sell the pound, disastrous. So again, we're trying to trade only in one direction when at all possible.